What up, my friends? Welcome back to my channel. We've got a fun one today. I'm hitting you with a freezer meal video. So today I'm sharing a huge variety of family-friendly freezer meals. We have a family of 5. It's my husband and myself. We have 3 toddlers, and everything that I have in this video is perfect for individuals or families. We've got breakfast covered, we've got lunches and dinners covered, and I even took the time, you guys, to make freezer pizzas. It was such a fun process, and it's something I'm gonna be doing going forward. I know summer schedules can be packed with a lot of fun stuff, and you probably don't want to take the time to have to actually cook anything, especially when it's super hot outside. I don't really want to be standing over the stove. So if you're looking to stock up your freezer so you have more time to get outside, this video is for you. If you happen to be new here, hi, how are you? How's the family? Thank you so much for clicking on that thumbnail and giving me a chance. On this channel, I do a lot of recipe inspiration, so if you need help with your menu, please feel free to check out the rest of my channel because I have plenty of content for it. If you end up enjoying the vibe while you're here, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. I will have all of the recipes listed down in the description box for you, but let's go check them out. All right, friends, we have a family-friendly, freezer-friendly breakfast option. We are making some French toast sticks. We're gonna use this thick sliced brioche-style bread here, using the entire loaf, which this says it's a 22-ounce loaf, 1 pound, 6 ounces. And we want to cut these into sticks. So I'm going to make myself like a pile of 3. So I can just cut through each of those pretty easy. And I'm gonna cut them in half once and then in half a second time. And I'm just gonna store them on a baking sheet on the side that they're gonna end up getting cooked on, just so they're out of my way. I'm gonna cut a stack this way and just see which one I prefer. Yeah, maybe I like these better. I like it better going the horizontal way. And honestly, this is the most work we're doing with this. Instead of having to have French toast that you sit at a stove and flip over and repeat 75 times, we are gonna cook this in the oven on a baking sheet, and then the tanning bed will do the rest of the work for us. So that's perfect. That is all the bread. Let me preheat my oven to 375 degrees, and I'm gonna clean up a little. All right, now we are gonna get working on the batter. So inside this bowl, I already have 4 large eggs for myself. In this, I have half a cup of milk and half a cup of heavy cream that I combined. You could just do milk if you wanted, and you can even do like a plant-based milk if you wanted to. We're gonna do a little bit of vanilla extract. I've got some ground cinnamon. We're doing about a teaspoon of that, but I never get mad about extra cinnamon. We're also gonna do a little bit of maple syrup. I'm gonna go semi-light on it because it's for the kids, probably about a tablespoon. If you want this to be a really indulgent breakfast, you could do a little bit more maple syrup, or you could do a combination of brown sugar and maple syrup. I love doing that. And then I'm just gonna do a little pinch of salt, and then I'm gonna mix. So here's the tedious part, not difficult, just tedious. We're just gonna dip each little brioche piece inside the batter. We're gonna drip off any of the excess. And what's nice is this wire rack is in one of those deeper baking sheets, which I will link down below. Any excess that's gonna fall off is just gonna fall off right into that. So you guys are just gonna jam out to some music, and I'm gonna dippy dip all of our little French toast sticks here. So I am going to be updating the recipe in the description box because I don't know if I miscalculated based on previous French toast I've made or what happened, but I'm about halfway through my bread, and I don't know if maybe it's because it's thick cut brioche. I should have accounted for that, but I am out of batter. So when you see the recipe in the description box, it'll be the correct recipe for the exact bread that I purchased. Okay, batter has been refilled, so we are back in business. I'm thinking it's because it's a brioche and they're thicker, but I don't know. I also, like, that seems like a hunky loaf, so maybe I was using wimpy bread in the past, you know? French toast is one of John's favorite meals, and it's one of the first things that I got like good at doing. So he has like nostalgia, I think, connected to me making French toast. He is gonna be excited about this. I forgot to put a silicone mat under this. I would put silicone parchment paper or foil underneath just for easier cleanup. Doesn't change anything in the cooking process, but if you are the chef and the dishwasher, it does make a difference there. Looking good. Now we did end with a little extra batter. I'd say like half a cup left. So if you had one extra slice of bread in the pantry that needs a little TLC, you could just dip it in there or just discard. All right, now I am gonna go ahead and sprinkle this with a little extra cinnamon. If you have cinnamon sugar on hand, like the combination one, that would be another vibe. Or if you wanted to make your own, just combine cinnamon. I like cinnamon and brown sugar personally together, but you could do cinnamon and granulated sugar, but we're just going with regular old cinnamon. We are gonna get this in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes until they are golden brown, little crispy around the edges. And we are gonna cool these completely. I'm gonna freeze them right on these little thingies here, like flash freeze them, and then stick them in a bag. I will reheat these right in the air fryer in the morning when I need them directly from frozen for probably 5 minutes at like 370 degrees. Nice, easy breakfast all done. And there's a generous amount of it because my kids would probably have like 3 each of these. So this is gonna make a lot of breakfast for us. Next up, we are making one of John's favorites, some sloppy joe mixture. We pretty much always have bread or slider buns on hand in the freezer, so if I need a quick weeknight meal, I can just take out some bread and this mixture for some sloppy joes. Or if you had like a leftover baked potato or even some pasta or rice, this works great on those as well. I started by browning my ground beef on medium-high heat, which I had seasoned with salt, pepper, smoked paprika, and chili powder. Then I drained the grease off and added in some onion, bell pepper, and garlic. I let that cook for a few minutes until it got soft, and then I added in a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. You could also use a store-bought ketchup or a tomato sauce. I added half a cup of water since I did tomato paste and that's a little thicker, a splash of apple cider vinegar, a tablespoon of brown sugar, and 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. I seasoned it one more time with the chili powder and the paprika, salt, and pepper, and I usually let that cook on the stove for 10 to 15 minutes. Then I let it cool down before I transferred it over to my freezer storage. So I love using freezer cubes for stuff like this because it's so easy to freeze it in the cube overnight, and then the next day you can transfer it to a storage bag to free up some space. It's also nice that in this form, John could just take a cube or 2 of it to work, and then he can bring a small pack of bread or some leftover slider buns and have lunches ready in his office fridge. I'll link the containers down below and the full recipe will be there as well. You guys, I'm pretty sure I'm a genius, okay? I'm pretty sure I am. We're gonna make some calzones using some biscuits. I think it's gonna work. Boom. The reason why I think I'm a genius is because normally with like a pizza dough, you would have to like cut it into a circular shape. But with this, we've already got a circle, you guys. You know what I mean? So I feel like we can make some magic happen and turn these bad boys into calzones. So that's what we're gonna try and do. What we're gonna be doing is we're making one for tonight, and then one I'm gonna put on a plate over here, a pile of them, and flash freeze them. So I'm gonna test out avoiding using a rolling pin because I'm lazy. And honestly, it's in the most obnoxious part of my cabinet. And I'm just gonna spray the back of a spatula and then push it out for myself to kind of like encourage the circle, and then almost like a pizza dough, just continue stretching. And they're gonna be like mini calzones, you know what I mean? But I feel like that's a vibe. And then I'm gonna put the avocado oil side down. I feel like this is gonna work. This still looks pretty greasy. Let's do a little assembly line process here. These look great already. Boom, look at that. Okay, we are just gonna work on half of it because we're gonna fold these over. So we're gonna put a little bit of sauce on the top half. I'd call that like a tablespoon of sauce. Beautiful. Now I have sliced mozzarella, but you could obviously use shredded. I also have relatively large pepperoni. I think I'm just gonna like fold it in half and put it over like that. And one for the chef, of course. Okay, so now this is the tricky part. And tuck it over. Hopefully you guys can see well. And then we're gonna use a fork to press it all together. I'm just gonna stab a couple holes too in the top because I feel like that's a good idea. But I don't know what I'm doing, so there's that. And I'm just gonna repeat with the rest of these. The next ones, I'll probably put the sauce more in the center. Kind of a learning process as we go. You guys get to benefit. And I'll make these the ones for the freezer. It might work like 2 at a time. Is anybody else like that? In order to get through like the busy work, you switch up your tactic. I just realized I didn't stab the top of these guys. Or do you like to do it the exact same way every time? Sometimes I like to go completely in order, and then sometimes I want to mix it up to get myself through it. I don't know what my deal is. And don't judge me on my parchment paper, okay? I can't find my regular parchment paper. I had bought this parchment paper. It's like really cute, like gingham or whatever. And I grabbed it because I was making like really cute charcuterie boxes for people. And I couldn't find my regular parchment paper tonight. So I was like, whatever, it'll work. I'm gonna sprinkle it with a little good old Italian seasoning. This is pretty much my trademark. At this point, this seasoning from Trader Joe's, if they ever discontinue it, I will be very upset. Garlic powder also happening. And if you wanted to, you could do some like shaky Parmesan cheese. I just have like the real stuff and I don't feel like wasting it on this. So I'm gonna go stick this in the freezer to flash freeze them, and then I will transfer them to Ziploc bags for easier storage. We are gonna apply the lessons we learned from round 1. Try and make round 2 even better. I'm gonna do some shredded cheese I have for the remaining because I do not have, well, I do have another pack of sliced mozz, but I don't want to open it only for 3. So we'll just go with a little pile of some shredded mozz. Last step for fillings is the pepperoni. Kind of went a little heavy on the cheese, I feel like, but that's good. Beautiful. And there's a few for the chef. I'm just gonna make myself a little pepperoni roast. A little messy, you know, I never claimed to be Pinterest Patty, but overall I think these are adorable. Let's season them up. We're gonna get them in the oven. I'm gonna check them like at the 12-minute mark. I'm fully prepared to go up to like 18 minutes because I have no idea with the shape and all that stuff. So we'll just keep an eye on it. I'm gonna check it at 12, then we'll increase as needed. All right, you guys, we had some cheese ooze out of some of them. Overall, these look awesome. I think that 12 minutes is good. I went about 14 minutes and I wish that I had probably done like 12, 13. They're a little more golden than I would normally go for, but overall, I think these are gonna be awesome. I've been like snacking on the cheese that exploded out of it. I mean, you can't go wrong with cheese. But anyways, there's the calzones. We've got this for dinner tonight and probably lunch tomorrow. And then I have some in the freezer to pop in the air fryer or the oven when I'm ready. Okay, so we are going to actually take this a budget step further and we're gonna make our own chicken stock while simultaneously cooking the chicken that we need to cook for these recipes. We're gonna be making 3 different freezer soups. They're all gonna be chicken based, and we are gonna create our own chicken stock using that chicken. You could obviously just take a store-bought chicken stock in like a carton if you wanted to, but we're gonna stretch it even further, and it's a great way to use up veggies that were on their way out. So in one of my crock pots, I'm gonna put down 1 chicken breast, and then the other one I'm gonna put down 3. So what I do for myself, and this is a very pathetic example, but I save veggie scraps as I'm cooking for this purpose. So I'm just gonna toss some of those veggie scraps in. I'm just splitting that between there. I've also got some garlic. We love garlic, so I'm gonna go pretty heavy on garlic here. And then I also just took a couple of onions and I just quartered them with the skins on because we're gonna strain this later. So I'm just kind of splitting those. I also had some baby peppers that were on their way to Shrink City. They were starting to shrink up real good, get shriveled up, I should say. And we're just gonna toss those in there. And then I have a couple of carrots that I didn't even bother peeling. They're all going in there. Boom. I also have some more baby carrots I know I'm not gonna be able to work through, so I'm gonna toss some of those in there to flavor. You can kind of just see, just use whatever vegetables you have. If I had celery, I would love to use some celery in there, but I don't have any on hand right now. We're also gonna put some black peppercorns in there, just a little sprinkle. Obviously heavier in the big guy. Okay, and then last but not least, we've got some bay leaf. So I'm just gonna put 1 bay leaf in this one, 2 bay leaves in this one. And you could also add salt if you wanted to, but I do not, because I just add salt when I'm cooking to taste. So I keep this low sodium. And I'm just gonna cover this all the way to the top of both of these with water. We're gonna cover these guys up, and I'm going to set them both to low. We're just gonna let them jam out for a few hours, probably like, I don't know, 5 or 6. And what you'll see me doing next is just pulling out the chicken and setting that to the side. That way we have it for the soups. And then I'll just be straining our stock, and then we'll be using that stock to go into the freezer meals. All right, it has been 6 hours. So I'm coming in here to steal the chicken. That's what I'm doing. I want this chicken breast right here. Some other stuff with me. We'll put that back. Boom. So we got 1 chicken breast from there, from this big guy. Gonna get the other 3. So I'm gonna let this guy cool off. That has all of our chicken, and then we'll use that in the soups. I'm gonna get some of these big chunks right in this, and then just take it to the trash for myself. And we're gonna strain this, but this just makes it easier for transporting because it gets pretty heavy. I also just turned the heat off on my crock pot to give it a chance to cool down. That looks good. I'm gonna go discard this, and then I'm going to move over to the sink, and we're gonna start straining. My method for this is I strain it into a large mixing bowl, like so. I just pick that strainer up, and then I use a little measuring cup to pour it into the containers. Now, a couple things. Normally I have deli soup containers that I would store this in, but I don't have any, I don't know how. So I'm just using these like glass ones for now, because they're just gonna get transferred anyway when we set up the soups. So these are kind of like temporary. I'm gonna set these off to the side, let them cool down. Now this beast is too heavy to try and pour in its current state, so we're gonna do this instead. If you had wide mouth mason jars, you could probably just do this directly over. Just put the strainer right over it. I do not currently have that, so we're just gonna work with what we got going on. Look at how beautiful that broth is. Look at how much stock we got. We got 1, 2 of these beasts. We got 1, 2, and then we have this little jar right here. That is everything that 4 chicken breasts, some pantry staples, and water created us. That's awesome. After we got the chicken done and chopped up, we're pretty much just moving into the assembly step. So for this, I did need to chop up some vegetables that we were going to use to spread out through 3 different chicken soup recipes. I will have the full recipes for these listed below. We had 3 soups in total. I did a chicken tortilla soup, a Puerto Rican style soup, and a lemon herb soup. Although the flavor profiles are different in these soups, what I tried to do is pick some overlapping produce that I needed to work through to make it so I could just assembly line these freezer soups, and it worked out perfect.
You know I want you close, maybe hold your hand a little while. Somehow I know you're gonna be the girl that I'll end up calling my own. We ride around in style, sleeves rolled up, glasses on. Make that smile when my heart starts racing when I'm with you. When I'm with you. Can't get enough of this. Being with you is like never-ending sunshine. Feels like everything stops for a while when we look into each other's eyes. How could I ever let you go now when you're looking like that?
Once I had all of those ingredients dropped into the soups, I laid them down flat in my freezer for storage. With these soups, I usually just transfer them to the fridge the night before I need them, and then dump them into my crock pot to cook throughout the day. If I'm in a rush though, another option is I'll run some warm water over the Ziploc just to get it to get away from the bag, and then I'll transfer it to my crock pot. Don't forget to label and date your bags, because it just makes it so much easier to know what's waiting on you in the freezer. Because we are going to be creating some pizza dough so we can meal prep some freezer pizzas for ourselves. Okay, so I forgot the yeast, but we're going to start off by getting the yeast into this warm water. I made sure the water was about 105 to 110 degrees. And then we're gonna drop 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast. So if you had a packet, that's exactly a packet, into that warm water. I will have the full recipe as always down below. I'm just gonna stir that. And we're gonna drop in a tablespoon of granulated sugar into that mixture as well. Now I'm gonna set that on the back while we work on everything else so that it can get all foamy for us. I have been making pizza from scratch for like years. I still lean on store-bought pizza dough, don't get me wrong, but there's something about making like a New York style pizza at home. I use bread flour for this. My favorite brand is the King Arthur. We're gonna do 7 3/4 cup of bread flour. And of course, I mean, it's a necessity in this kitchen to make a mess on the counter. Next up, one of the last ingredients is we're just gonna add a tablespoon of salt. Whenever I bake or do anything like this, I like to use pink Himalayan salt. I'm gonna get a dough hook on here. This is gonna be too loud for me to talk through, but I'm gonna start spinning this, and then you're gonna see me slowly start streaming this in a minute. And the last step will be 2 tablespoons of avocado oil. Okay, so you can see that the dough completely lifted from the sides and it just kind of cleans this entire situation up. So we are gonna get this off of the dough hook now. I'm gonna go ahead and just spray a little avocado oil right on here. And the dough hook really did the work for me, so I don't need to do too much kneading. But I am just gonna kind of get it into more of like an elastic state, if you will. If you felt like your dough was too sticky, you'll want to, instead of doing avocado oil, you'd want to work with some flour. But in my case, it's actually pretty good. And we're gonna be making 10 pizzas with this. They're smaller pizzas though, they're like 10-inch pizzas. So if you were trying to make bigger pizzas, you probably want to cut down on how many dough balls you make with this. I just want to weigh these to get them around the same size. So I have a kitchen scale, it is on its last leg. And you don't have to weigh them, especially if they're for you, you don't need them to be uniform. Okay, so they're all around 6.5 ounces, so that's exciting. This is where it's different from regular bread because I'm rolling these up, putting them inside this greased baking dish. I'm gonna cover it and then I'm gonna get them in the fridge. And they're gonna go in the fridge for about 12 hours. Did any of you guys grow up in an area that had a Bertucci's? Because I remember when I was a kid, we would go to Bertucci's and they would give you pizza dough at the table so you could play with it. And it was like the funnest thing ever. And so I'm just like sitting here thinking like, I know people do sensory play with their kids and make like pizza dough and stuff. And I'm just thinking how much fun that would be to do with my kids right now. Because they're finally at the stage where they don't put everything in their mouth. And granted, this is somewhat taste safe, but you're not supposed to really consume raw flour. It's not like ideal. If they put it in their mouth, I know it wouldn't be, you know, something horrific. It's not like it's poisonous. But it was still something I kind of stayed away from just for that fact. And now it's like cool to think that that's something I could start introducing with them. We could do play with it or even just like actually make pizza. Like the idea of my kids like getting in the kitchen with me is so exciting. And I know a lot of people even introduce it even earlier than my kids' ages. My kids are twin 2-year-olds and a 3-year-old. But it's just a little bit different logistically when there's 3 of them. Sometimes I have to make decisions that, you know, prioritize my mental health in terms of managing a chaos with 3 of them. Not saying having 1 is any easier, it's just logistically it's a little different. So I'm gonna cover this up, get it in the fridge, and we'll see it in about 12 hours to prep the pizzas. What I am gonna do is a half hour before I start, I'm gonna take them out and let them sit on the counter for that 30-minute window. All right, friends, I have these little cake boards that I bought that are going to go underneath the pizza, and then it's gonna get wrapped in some saran wrap to go in the freezer. So I'm keeping 1 over here for myself. That way when I form the dough, I have kind of an idea. We have our pizza dough. I was supposed to do this last night, but I didn't get around to it, which actually works out because the longer you let the dough stay in the fridge, the better. You don't want to go too long, but overnight is best. So we're at like a full, I don't know, 30 hours, I would say. Oh yeah, this is nice and easy to work with, you guys. To be kind of like a personal pizza. And if these are a little rustic looking, I don't really, I'm just gonna encourage a little bit of a crust. We're gonna spray these with a little avocado oil, and then I'm gonna poke some holes in the crust a little. I have my oven preheated at 500 degrees. I'm gonna pop these in there and we're gonna cook them just for 5 minutes. So we're gonna just keep working the doughs and make 10 of these and try and get stuff in the oven every 5 minutes, basically. Okay, so if anybody was wondering on the time, it took me 2.5 minutes to roll out 2 of those. So basically every 2.5 minutes, 2 pizzas will be going in the oven, which is really cool. All right, first round is done. So you just want them to start puffing up and get like lightly golden brown in certain spots. This is called par baking. It's not a full bake. I'm gonna let it cool for a couple minutes on this and then transfer it to a wire rack. We want it to be completely cool before we add the topping. And we're just gonna repeat this process with the rest. Okay, so that's like a little hack I think I just discovered. Spin the silicone mat instead of trying to pick that pizza dough up. Okay, I'm gonna get the first few transferred to a wire rack. All right, we're on the final 2. This really was not bad at all. I am shocked. It was literally about a 2 to 3 minute process per dough. I had to do like a couple things in between, so that's why it didn't like work out seamlessly. But honestly, if you were just doing this and you were actually focused on like me, I think you could power through these real fast. Like I could see myself doing this again in the future and doing like 20. The thing with doing that many, though, is just gonna make sure you get the freezer space for it. All right, guys, I've got 6 crusts that are completely cooled. We have 4 more that are working on cooling off. So I'm gonna get these out for myself. Before we get into the decorating party, I wanna go over a couple of the things that we have. So as we know, we have cake boards. These are 10-inch. If you wanted to make bigger pizzas, then you would just go with bigger cake boards. These cake boards are not for the oven. So this is just for storage purposes. When you go to actually bake the pizza, you're gonna wanna transfer it over to a baking sheet, a pizza stone, whatever you use. We also have some plastic wrap. I grabbed this one on Amazon. I don't really use plastic wrap that much outside of this, so that's that. I also went ahead and made myself some labels for the pizza that I know we're gonna be making. If you guys just like pepperoni, and all 10 will be pepperoni, you obviously don't need to do this step, but I did do this so then that way when it's in the freezer we know what it is. I also have a 1/4 cup measuring cup because I don't want to overdo it with the sauce. We have 6 here, so I'm gonna do 3 cheese, 2 pepperoni, and 1 pepperoni and salami. I have a big jar of homemade marinara sauce that we made to use for this, and then I shredded some cheese for ourselves, so I'm gonna grab out pepperoni, salami, cheese, and then we have this guy. One thing you guys need to know is that we do need to flash freeze these before we put the plastic wrap on. That's what the internet says. What I'm gonna do is do 2 at a time, get them in a freezer, let it flash freeze for about 30 minutes, and then you can add this saran wrap to it. So this is just some freshly shredded mozzarella. And I'm also gonna put a little bit of Parmesan on there. All right, now I'm gonna go pop these in my freezer. Okay, so one of these is gonna be cheese, one is gonna be pepperoni. We're gonna top this guy with some pepperoni. And look, a few for the chef. All right, now I'm gonna go pop both of these in the freezer. All right, next on the agenda, we got 1 pepperoni and 1 pepperoni and salami. into the freezer. These two will go. All right, last two, we're gonna do a margarita pizza, which I don't even know if it's an actual margarita pizza, but I think it is. All right, you guys, we officially have all of the pizzas done. They've been par baked, they've been topped, and they have been flash frozen is what the terminology is apparently. And that's just so like the saran wrap doesn't cling to soft cheese and stuff like that. So we are going to now wrap each of these guys up. And then we got our label on here. We have so many pizzas. There's 10 altogether, 3 cheese, 2 pepperoni and salami, a margarita pizza, mushroom, onion, and bell pepper, and salami and mushroom. So these are all gonna go in the freezer, and I think they're probably good for like 3 months, but let's be honest, they'll be gone before that point. I should date them. That would be a good idea. So I'm gonna throw some dates on there. And you know, my husband's name is John. Let's just call it Papa John's at this point, you know? So I'm gonna date these and they'll go in the freezer and everything's gonna be great. All right, you guys, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me today. It means the absolute world to me. I hope you're walking away with a couple ideas for things you can get in the freezer, because I promise future you will thank you. I also hope I delivered whatever you needed when you clicked on that thumbnail, and I hope you have a magical day. Bye.